The Scalia Award for restoring the balance of government was created last year in honor of the famed Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. Presented to leaders in the legal profession with a record of defending the ALEC principles of free markets, limited government, and federalism, we specifically focus on those who actively worked to diminish the role and influence to the federal government in their states' affairs. That describes Arizona Supreme Court Justice Clint Bolick perfectly, absolutely perfectly. And at the Institute for Justice, Alliance for School Choice, and the Goldwater Institute, Justice Bolick fought to support small businesses, support school choice, and protect free speech. Ladies and gentlemen, ALEC's 2023 Scalia Award for restoring the balance of government winner, Arizona Supreme Court Justice Clint Bolick.
Well, thank you so much for that incredible honor, and I even see a gavel up here, so I really feel at home. I can't tell you how much of an honor it is to receive an award named after Antonin Scalia. As a member of the Arizona Supreme Court, I esteem him, I try to channel him, and I even wear him. When I was appointed to the Supreme Court by Governor Doug Ducey, and I joined the court, I had not expected to ever be a judge, and certainly not on the Arizona Supreme Court. And when I went into my office, which was literally empty, I didn't have a single staffer. I didn't really know what to expect, and I asked the Chief Justice, Scott Bales, who is the most liberal member of our court, I said, oh boy, was this a naive question. Is there sort of like a handbook for being a judge? And he laughed and he said, no. But he said, there is one book that you have to buy, and that is Antonin Scalia's book called Reading Law. And this book, there's not a week that goes by that I don't consult this book for statutory and constitutional interpretation. And I've often thought, what an amazing thing to know that one day perhaps we will be continuing to teach people after our days on earth are over. We can only aspire to such an amazing thing. I miss working with ALEC. I am happy that my wife, Senator Shauna Bolick, continues to be a major participant in ALEC functions. You may wonder how this works. You know, one spouse is a member of the judiciary, the other spouse is a member of the legislature. You know, we've got balance of powers, separation of powers. And that is, in fact, how it works in the real world. But at home, the legislature is in charge. I just wanted to make a few remarks about ALEC and its incredible role. Sometimes when you're really close to something, you don't realize how important and magnificent it is. I remember playing softball on the Capitol Mall when I was at the Institute for Justice, and I'd see this slash, this shadow on our makeshift softball field, and it was the Washington Monument. And you'd look up and say, wow, I didn't appreciate just how magnificent it is. Well, that is true of an organization like ALEC. One of the roles that ALEC played that is really unsung was during the school choice litigation. Those of you, Shauna and I met at the Heritage Foundation because of our shared passion for education choice and education reform. Now the conversations, those of you who are involved in education policy, they must be so fun because the realm of the possible is literally unlimited. That would not have been the case if a US Supreme Court decision had turned out differently 21 years ago involving the Cleveland School Choice Program, which came down to one vote, the vote of this state's Supreme Court Justice, Sandra Day O'Connor. And to say that it was close, and if we had lost that case, you would be talking not about education savings accounts, religious charter schools, tax credits, vouchers, and so forth. You'd be saying, well, maybe with this Supreme Court, things would turn out differently and we can begin to rebuild. But I'd like to say about that decision that if a single person or a single organization that supported that program didn't do what they did, the result might have been different. And one of those organizations was ALEC. And it played such an incredible role. We knew that a program was going to go up to the United States Supreme Court, but we had no idea which one it would be. So all of them had to be legally defensible. And so we worked with ALEC to design model legislation and leaving the details up to the states, but making sure that there were two ingredients in these school choice programs that would, in our view, ensure their constitutionality. And they happen to be neutrality, meaning that religious schools were only one of the educational options available, and true parental choice, that is, that no money would go to a religious school except by the independent choices of the parents. And ALEC designed these school choice model bills, and a number of states were experimenting in all of those programs. Thanks to that model legislation, had those two ingredients. And we went up to the United States Supreme Court, and by that bare one vote majority, we won. And I'm not sure we would have won if we had had 50 states doing their own things without that incredible, important model legislation that ALEC put forward. Coming full circle back to Antonin Scalia, I'll never forget the court argument in the US Supreme Court over that program. And by that time, I had been arguing against the chief lawyer from the National Education Association, Robert Shannon, so many times that I could not only give his argument, I could give his argument in his voice. And he was a New York labor lawyer, and I'll never forget the moment during the oral argument where he said, "Ioannas, we don't need vouchers, we need more money." And Scalia slaps his own forehead and he said, in his baritone voice that I wish I had, he said, "It's not a money problem, it's a monopoly problem." I just want to leave you with this. Again, something magnificent that is going on that we may not all fully appreciate. This is the golden age of federalism. This is the time where states come to the fore, and instead of the US Supreme Court striking down a lot of what states do, they are actually engaged in returning power to the states. One issue in particular I can't talk about, for example. Seize that moment. Be beacons of freedom. And never have state legislators been more important or frankly more powerful or more in the center of the clash between freedom and tyranny. With that, I just want to say the only Latin phrase that I think is important, carpe diem. Thank you so much for this award.